And we are live on Who Wrote That Up For You. Today is Monday, October 24th, 2022. I'm Sonia Ebron, a co founder at Courtroom 5.
And I'm Deborah Sloan, the other co founder at Courtroom 5.
We have an interesting show for you today. We are welcoming back to the show Eric F. Wright Sr. We spoke with a few weeks ago. Eric is a former Louisiana attorney who's now a law clerk in New York and just has some interesting perspectives on the access to justice crisis based on his experience in the courts. So we'll speak with him today. Before we get there, though, Deborah, what is your issue of the day? What's on your mind?
Well, in recognition of Halloween season, wanted to report on a study by State Farm that showed children are twice as likely to die on Halloween than on any other day of the year. And just in general, Halloween is just a dangerous time for basically everybody. The Kane and Silverman, a law firm in Philadelphia, has this injury law blog uh, that uh, that points out 6 ways to avoid a lawsuit this Halloween. But it's also, in my mind, also 6 ways to make sure that children are safe and that that everybody's safe. Point number one: clear your property from obstacles, things like garden hoses, flower pots, tree roots, and so on. uh, Turn on the lights at your house so that people can see where they're going. Children can see where they're going. Keep your dog in a safe, locked up place. Don't leave open like lit candles outside or jack o' lanterns in walkways, things that people can trip over or things that may cause a fire. Be on high alert while you're driving because there are people out there at night and they're so they may be very dark. Costumes may be very dark, and of course, the final one is don't drink and drive. And so those are some of the things that should keep people safe during the Halloween season.
That's a startling statistic. I don't believe I'd ever heard that before. That there is, did you say twice the rate of
Twice,
child death as a result of
twice.
some of these errors? I'd really hate to have a child harmed on my property as a result of this celebration. So, really glad to have you bring that to everyone's attention. Y'all, please be safe for yourselves and for anybody who might be harmed on your property during this Halloween season. Well, Who Wrote That Up For You is sponsored by Courtroom 5. As you know, at Courtroom 5, we believe the courts belong to the people, in particular to the people who use them. And we, the people, are coming to claim our courts. So if you are in court without a lawyer, or you need to sue someone and can't find a lawyer to represent you, get yourself over to courtroom5.com. Try a limited version of our services for free, and we hope to provide some relief for you there. At this time, it's my great pleasure to welcome back to the show Eric F. Wright Sr. As I mentioned, Eric spent 5 years practicing law in Louisiana. He's now in New York working as a law clerk and has some insights on the access to justice crisis that we're all experiencing. Welcome back to the show, Eric. Thank you so much for joining us again.
Thank you for having me again, Sonia and Deborah.
And so, Eric, when we had you on before, we were able to touch on just a couple of the insights that you wanted to share with us. And I know you spent a good bit of time thinking about the availability or access to resources and its relationship to access to justice or access to the courts specifically. And I wondered if you would spend just a little while just expounding on your thoughts on that issue.
Well, most people would never need reason. It's not something that we think about until it's the first thing is we need to change that because it's not if and if we are always in the mode of preparation for the things, then that's the first thing. Knowing where the courthouse is, knowing how much knowing the different levels of the court. Of course, there's small claims court that deal with housing, and then there's a different level of court depending on how much you're asking for. Just understanding that is just one of the one prepare yourself for the inevitable, and also talk to have the conversation and with your friends about um, court, about filing a lawsuit, at the process of serving a pleading. These conversations, not just when the emergency happened, but regular be had at the dinner table or when you're around your friends or family.
It is so important for people to be able to share their experiences in the courts with friends and family. We've seen at Courtroom 5 in particular, so many of our users who feel a sense of shame around having to deal with court, whether it's on the civil or the criminal side. It's just something about having to be in court that many of us see as shameful. Maybe you didn't weren't able to pay a bill, or maybe got in some got arrested or something like that. And oftentimes, if you don't have to, you don't share that with your friends or even family, close relatives, because of just a sense of shame there. And I know, as you say, it's so important to be able to just reduce the isolation around those experiences. Friends and family can oftentimes provide us with some support, right, and better decision making there. What is
Right.
what and so if you don't have a lawyer, Eric, let me just put it plainly. If you're in a situation where you can't retain counsel, what do people do to be able to access the court? So how do they approach that sort of situation?
Well, I couldn't hear the full question of what you were saying before that. We had lost sound for a little bit, but I would just expound upon, not waiting till the last minute, not living a life thinking that you will never need the courts, and always have that rainy day fund just in case. I mean, we live in a very litigious society, so I just think that any family or any adult, it's just wiser just to know certain things that are going on that are very important in your community, in your city, in your county. Um, and so I think with preparation for just about anything, you would have the money to have the access, because nothing is free. Um, and if you have even some part-time jobs, you don't qualify to file your pleading, what is called informal pauperous, which is for people who cannot afford to file pleading. So, but the minimum for that you can earn or make to even get an informal pauperous pleading approved, it's very minimal, and most people don't qualify that. Usually you have to be unemployed or disabled or something like that on a fixed income. So you got to have, and when it comes to court or when it comes to law, as anything in life, you have to have a spirit of preparation that starts, it should start in the home while you're being raised, and definitely as a responsible adult. These are things that are inevitable, that are going to happen, that you just should be prepared for.
It's interesting that particular insight, that particular for certain communities, you should expect to end up in court, right? That you should
Yeah.
prepare ahead of time, right? That it's almost like making sure you have a rainy day fund for rent, or if you lose a job and have to, sustain yourself. We need a rainy day fund for our experiences in court in the same way. That is striking to me,
Yeah,
right?
and I would also like to add, um, the courts are the only way to keep the system honest. And so if we have a spirit of preparation, um, of for the inevitable, then when it's time to keep a landlord honest, or keep a local
Mhm.
business honest, or a hospital honest, you're not afraid of it, because you had this spirit of preparation for, like you said, the inevitable. And you are correct. Black Americans, in particular, we have more incidents where we end up in the court system. So that's something that we should be preparing for, like we prepare for anything else.
It's amazing.
Mm,
That
yeah.
is a startling insight there. But we do see so many people in the courts from all communities, certainly disproportionately black and brown, who are in court unprepared, right? Not only are we unprepared with the finances to be able to get legal representation, but we're also unprepared for having to deal with those systems without counsel. What is your advice for people who find themselves in those situations?
Well, we need more services like the one you two founded, Courtroom Five, who um, who whose target audience, are those people who um, don't are not familiar with the court, and don't wait until something happens, because there are things on Courtroom Five, in terms of how y'all got the program structured, that you can learn about how to put arguments together, or and you can use this not just in court, but maybe if you're a manager at a job, or if you supervise people, or there's a manual at work you're trying to um, break apart so you can learn it better. Like, you can use programs like this, which lawyers use. They don't use Courtroom Five per se, but they use programs from Westlaw, LexisNexis, Case Map, or um, things of that nature. So this programs like this can help you, and not just when you need court. You're in school. If you are in school right now, I mean, imagine using a program like this where you could store your work and organize your thoughts, and get your papers and stuff together. So these are things that have to be regular. We have to normalize these things. Normalize them in every way. Talk about them in every group that you are a part of, because it's not when, it's not if, it's when.
I appreciate that, and I promise I was not fishing for a compliment there, but I can more compliments with response. But I will certainly, I certainly saw our business model expanding as you spoke there, so I appreciate
Yes,
that.
thank you. Well, hey, I'll wait my check in the mail. I'll wait for it.
There you go. There you go. We're going to take a quick break and hear from Deborah on her quiz. But I'd love to talk with you about one of the other topics that struck me from our last conversation, which was the role of trauma and being able to access the courts and just that relationship. So give us just a moment here and we'll bring you right back. Thank you, Mr. Wright. Deborah, who won our quiz for, I think, last Thursday and Friday because we had to record for Friday? Do we have a winner for either day?
We got a winner for both days. On Thursday's quiz, what's the difference between a motion for summary judgment and a motion to dismiss? A motion to dismiss seeks to bar a claim based on defects in the complaint or the service of process or other procedure. A motion for summary judgment, on the other hand, moves a court to throw out a claim or defense based on the merits of the case: who did what to whom. And the winner for Thursday is Ben S.
Congratulations to Ben there.
And then Friday's quiz provide one standard of review in an appeal. Provide one standard of review in an appeal. Now, standard of review is basically how much respect or deference an appellate court will give to a lower court on appeal. And for example, they can review the entire case and overturn the decision if the judge made any error. And that's de novo. And that's the answer that was given here, and that is correct. Or they can use a higher standard, such as something like an abuse of discretion, and leave the decision in place absent something like a firm conviction that the lower court committed a clear error or an error in judgment. So the winner for Friday is Caitlin S., who said one of the standards of review on appeal is de novo.
And
Today's
congratulations
quiz,
to Caitlin there.
all right. Today's quiz, you're in a civil non evidentiary hearing, and the attorney for your opponent asks you a question about the facts of the case. What's the best approach to handling this situation? Is it A, politely answer the question? Is it B, ask the judge if it's okay to answer the question? And if it's okay, answer. Is it C, ask the attorney to direct his questions to the judge? Or is it D, ask the judge to instruct the attorney not to treat you like a witness? So, what's the best approach to handling the situation? If you want to participate in today's quiz, send your responses to quiz@courtroom5.com.
No way we're going to have a winner. That is so hard. That one is tough. That one is tough. Hey, everybody, take your guesses, take your shot. Right? Let's see if we can get a winner on that one tomorrow. I'm not quite sure I'd know how to answer that, but thank you, Deborah, for that challenge. Let's welcome back to the show Eric F. Wright, Senior. Eric, I was struck again by our last conversation about your comments in relation to trauma. And certainly we know that there are varying levels of trauma just across the board in different communities. But I wanted to ask you to share with us your insights on the role that trauma plays in our ability to access the courts. What keeps us in court and keeps us out of court, and so forth. I'd just love to hear your thoughts on that topic.
Hmm.
No problem. When I think about trauma, you got to understand whenever trauma occurs, it's something unusual. It's a pain or an event or something you're just not familiar with, and 9 times out of 10, the trauma occurred outside of the courthouse. So you're dealing with that pain, um, and that novelty of whatever caused that hurt, and then now you need access to the court. So, and that's another novel situation that you don't, something you just don't normally do. And so when you combine the two, and you're trying to represent yourself at the same time, I mean,
Hmm.
that's trauma, all you getting it from all sides. And so that, and we can avoid at least, and it brings me back to our last segment. I mean, you can avoid at least some of that trauma just by being prepared. And we spoke about this in the last segment. Again, just don't wait until you need to go to court before you start to learn how the court system works. Don't wait until now you after you already hurt, and now you're trying to learn, and that's the wrong time to learn, to try to learn something new when you're trying to process a traumatic situation. It's best to learn these things, learn the court's website, learn the court personnel. These people are vital to because every community has it. So every community and every municipality, providence in the country has these um, pillars of of civilization. So basically, you don't wait. That's something you can do um, to prepare yourself for that, and also and prepare the strain on your resources as well. Um, and so when you're dealing with the strain on your resources and the trauma, the only thing that can really prepare you for dealing with a situation like that is just have a spirit of preparation when it comes to legal matters, just like you would have with health or anything else. Because it's not, again, it's not if, it's when.
It's not if, it's when. That's exactly right. And we know that most of the people who find themselves in court are defendants, right? Particularly those who are representing themselves. But for those plaintiffs, people who've been injured and want to seek redress in the courts, if they have to do it themselves, speaking to your spirit of preparation, how do you advise people to get ready, to get prepared before filing that complaint? Because we
Well,
see a lot of people just jump in and thinking they're going to see Judge Judy, and you just got to say what happened. What preparation would you recommend to people who have a complaint, a claim that they want to pursue in the courts?
well, nothing beats research. So you have to do your research. You have to know, and in order to do research, you have to understand what some of these terms mean. What is a notice? What is a complaint? What is a subpoena? Um, what is a pleading, and what's not a pleading? And you have to understand like rules like ex parte. Um, and various so a good a Black's legal dictionary, or a legaldictionary.com, just to familiarize yourself with some of the terms, so when you go into court, you say the right language so people think you know what you're talking about. Those are just some of the things that you can do, in addition to again um, just softwares, or programs, or anything like that, that could help just take out some of the mystery, away from trying to get into the court.
And as you have mentioned, trauma is just a big factor that drives some of us into court. Can also keep us out of court when we ought to be in
Yes.
court, right? But when you're traumatized and you're having to represent yourself because you haven't prepared with the funds to hire a lawyer, do you recommend that people handle their healing if it's possible, right? If it's not an exigent circumstance, if they've been injured, do you recommend that they heal themselves first and then prepare to handle the business in court? Or, is it something that you want to take to court in your injured state?
Well, when the way it usually works is the trauma is so bad that you don't go to court at all. That what ends up happening, and this happens way too many times, that like the emotional drain of it is not worth even going to court, and that happens too much, if in my opinion. And if you're even deciding, you know whether or not you should go to court or not, I mean, you're in a good place, because when most people are going through trauma, the last thing they want to do is to go into an environment that they also not familiar with, and they're scared, and they don't know what to do. So I applaud anyone who, in the midst of a storm, that can still find it inside of them to file a pleading and go to the court for recompensation of whatever you're injured for. I commend those people. But generally speaking, I would certainly recommend getting yourself together, making sure you have a level head, because you don't want to bring all of that emotion into the court. And you got to understand, like, human beings are reading your pleadings, and you don't want to, when you write something, you want to think about not what you're going through. You want to think about what the person who's reading what you're writing, you want to think about their psyche. They maybe they had a bad day, or maybe they had a good day, and they don't want their day to be bad, and they don't want to read this and like, oh, this is a bunch of hurt. So you always have to think about the person who's going to read this on the other side, and make sure you write to them, as opposed to just all of the hurt coming out of you. And that's hard to do, because when you hurt, you want to tell your story. You want to tell it exactly how it happened, but the you can't do that, especially when you asking someone else for help. You have to think about the person that you're asking for help, and make sure you put it in an appropriate way, that has as less trauma in it as possible.
Yeah,
Mm.
even while you're
Wow.
telling the story of your trauma, it is really, really difficult. And I've seen so many people hurt, in dealing with their trauma and trying to share that with a judge, a decision maker in court, as though the judge were a therapist, right, and able to heal them in some way. And so, yeah, it's striking to me how court isn't the place to deal with your trauma on that level, right?
Right,
It's a
correct.
way to redress the grievance, but not to get your healing in that way. So, understood, understood. Listen, we've run out of time, but I really wanted to. I appreciate you for coming back and diving a little bit deeper on those issues, which are dear to our hearts here at Courtroom Five, and just really appreciate the insight and the perspective that you're willing to share. I will
Well,
say that I know you're on your way to joining the bar again, and I'm glad that we caught you in this precious time when you may be more free to share your perspective in this way. So I really, really appreciate you being willing to join us and share that.
it's my pleasure. Thank you for what you guys are doing, and thanks for having me.
You
Yeah.
bet. We will have you again.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah, that we rarely we've been doing this now about 6 weeks, and I think we've certainly got a number of people that we want to talk with and have on the show. But it was such a striking first conversation with Mr. Wright that I was really jumped at the opportunity to speak with him again and to hear those insights and in a deeper form there. So there's so much though that we can talk about in terms of the issues that he raised. Access to resources affecting your access to the courts, and the trauma that many people bring with them, whether they are plaintiff or a defendant.
Yeah, I've always marveled at all the emotions that come up with just being a plaintiff or defendant in a case. Even if it's a case you feel like you're about to win and you're blowing it out of the ballpark, it's just there's always some kind of stress, some kind of trauma. There's always something like that, and so anything you can do to kind of knock it off or to kind of get rid of that stress or trauma is a benefit.
Absolutely, absolutely. Fantastic. Well, that's all we have for you today. As always, we will see you on tomorrow. You all get those quiz questions, those quiz answers in. Look forward to seeing a winner there tomorrow. Thanks, everyone.
Are you feeling beleaguered, angry, or afraid, as if things are spinning out of control and you're powerless to stop them? It's easy to just let things slide and hope they don't get worse. But they often do get worse. The thing is, you're not powerless. Our courts belong to us, and their purpose is to give power to the powerless. Don't let your grievances pile up without redressing them. You can handle this in court. Or, if someone takes you to court, you can take them to school.